Ready?
Yes.
Let's call this meeting to order. Joe, would you be kind enough to make a roll?
Mr. Livingston?
Here.
Ms. Giuliani?
Here.
Mr. Clomer? Ms. Belfour?
Here.
Ms. Cimaroli?
Here.
I'm here. Yeah, sorry about that.
We met, one of the reasons why we're a little late, we met in an executive session this evening to take on some legal counsel regarding a couple issues. So, public comment for the agenda?
Just Pat.
Just Pat?
I
Okay.
have nothing on the agenda. I was going to talk after about broader stuff. It's not on the agenda.
Okay. Adoption of minutes.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Okay, got a motion to accept the minutes as published and a second. Any comments?
No.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. New business. Item number one, Chibala Corner plan of lots. Proposes a consolidation of two existing parcels into one parcel. The properties are located to the south of Presley Road on the east side of Ewing Street in an R1 zoning district. One Ewing Avenue and 340 Presley Road. We'll review and discuss the proposed lot consolidation plan. Joe?
The application and plans have been reviewed by the borough engineer. There was two revisions requested to secure compliance to the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance. The revisions to the plan have been made and provided back to us. It's included in your packet. One was minor, it just included the setback requirements, and they did that. The second thing was that the Saldo prohibits double frontage lots, and a waiver to that is requested, and a letter was received from their engineer for that request. So as you see in B, the way that is worded would allow for that we'll just call it that variance. That doesn't have to go to the zoning hearing board, that's done by council action. Both Mr. and Mrs. Chibala are here if there's any questions, but the project's rather straightforward. The front house, as you see on the plan, is to be demolished, and the garage for that house is to remain. It will be one parcel merged into their existing home on Ewing Street.
Okay. Consider action to recommend to the Borough Council the approval of the Chibala Corner plan of lots, including approval of modification section 505.c of the Borough's Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance, Chapter 22, to allow proposed Lot 1 to be created as a double frontage lot, and any comments to be received from Allegheny County Economic Development being addressed by the applicant. Has the county?
The county was provided the plan in their application. They have 30 days to respond.
Okay.
And we'll be notified if they do have comments.
We'll get a letter back either way, and we should have that letter back in advance of the November 11th council meeting.
But we can still take action on this evening.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any ramifications for a double frontage lot?
In this instance, no.
Okay. What about the future? I mean, does it open any doors that could create issues in the future?
I can't speak to that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think the idea was there is that in essence, if this wasn't already built, you'd have 3 front yards. So with small parcels, it makes it difficult.
Yeah.
That's what makes it the anomaly. Because when you have a corner lot, you have 2 front yards. Here,
Right.
you're having 3 front yards and 1 backyard.
Yeah.
So the setbacks kind of make the lot
Yeah.
really unbuildable.
Right.
But the house is non-conforming from the start. You can see it's pretty much built to the street. It doesn't even have the setback. So it's kind of irrelevant. It's just a requirement for compliance.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Anybody have any questions for the property owner?
No,
Okay?
For the demolition of the house, does that get discussed tonight, or is that a separate thing?
No, they're gonna be making application for a demolition permit.
Okay.
Once the plan is approved, then the demolition permit can be issued. You could make application for it, but the demolition permit would be contingent on this being recorded.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, good question.
Okay.
All right. I'll take a motion. All right, I'll make, go ahead.
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion to pass this on to the council for approval.
Second.
Okay? Any other further discussion?
No.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Now the headaches start.
Okay, item number 2, review, discuss, and consider potential recommendations for zoning and subdivision ordinance updates regarding residential yards, setbacks, and other miscellaneous lot requirements. Tom, can you?
Yeah, sure. I'll back up a little bit so everybody can see me. Audience and you guys. As you know, you guys got you received some inquiries recently about some potential areas to look at in our developed community, and potentiality of instances where, say, you have a plan of lots developed and, we have a surrounding vacant lands around them, inside or outside the township. Do we have in place, and are there things that folks do to address those sorts of things? And I know there was a specific inquiry, but actually it kind of raises a larger issue, because as you know, Bridgeville Borough, of our age and the mature development, we're pretty much built out together, and many of the communities around us are, to some extent, up against us, and kind of the palette's pretty set. At the same time, there are instances, and so what you're going to have here, in your comprehensive planning, you're looking kind of, a lot of times, internally, and a lot of that is redevelopment, looking at zoning to facilitate development within the community. There's infill development that may be occurring inside the community, but in the area here, generally, in this kind of neck of the woods, you're seeing now lands that you just have pockets of lands around, whether it's inside or outside the community here, others I serve, where those lands that were sometimes felt to be maybe even not really developable are suddenly becoming developable. So it's something looking down the pike, take a look at. And actually, Joe and I asked him to, the catalyst was a specific inquiry, but I gave you a little handout that Joe put together for me. I said, hey, find all the places around us where you have these kind of border points to other areas where you have potential vacant properties, or you even have existing facilities that could be, expanded upon or accessed from to and from. Obviously, there's areas, for example, on the Collier border, into the industrial site and the Universal site. There's some lands there that could be redeveloped or accessed from areas, and that's a matter of planning concern you want to look at and address. Likewise, over in the border over by 79 on the northwestern side of the community. So, with that in mind, taking a 30,000 feet look at it, do we have rules that address these sorts of things? And if we don't, should there be rules put in place for that? I'm privileged to work with our borough engineer and other communities as well, North Fayette, for example, where we have pretty active, development and ordinance refinements always going on. So I take advantage of picking their brains on things, and also my colleagues in a number of communities where I work, and looking at their ordinances and some recommendations that were given to me to look at. together and looking at what we have, how it might be, these different points might be addressed in our planning so that we control and make sure that the development that impacts us around us is in harmony with, and our development in our existing communities is, kept so that it remains in harmony with the outside world and it fits the development with us. So I have come up with some potential rules, again, looking at not reinventing the wheel. These are existing rules that I found elsewhere in other communities, Pine Township, Hampton, North Bay, others, for example. And these are the sort of things, and while I'm at it, when I look at something like this, I always kind of, are there other little things that you do that are kind of the same topic? So putting that all together, I had, and with Sean, we wrote, Leonard Smith and I had formulated some of these for some of my peers that gave me some ideas. And anyway, I think these are things that I would recommend that we do that would address those concerns that we would have about the border points that we have all the way around. And you have to keep in mind too, it's not just that there may be a vacant parcel here or there. Anymore, like I said, with the development, things becoming more, things that were not doable years ago, maybe doable now. You look out in LA, they'll rip down a whole house to build. So for instance, things of that nature.
Sure.
So with that in mind, the recommendations would be, and these are in no kind of particular order, but they kind of would fit together and fill out rules that we already have. And I would recommend these being as a lot of rules on these things, and when I start talking about, they go to lot specifications, setbacks, and things of that nature. You find these in zoning ordinances and kind of redundantly in subdivision and land development ordinances. In fact, a lot of times what you'll see in the subdivision and land development ordinances, rule number 1 says, follow all the zoning ordinance rules, and in addition to that. But a lot of the in addition, they are basically zoning. They keep to both rules. With that in mind, there's a zoning concept called a flag lot. And a flag lot, if you can imagine what a flag looks like, is a lot that looks like a flagpole, and then it has a big flag behind it. And it's a rule that, if not addressed, allows one to, when you're designing and building a neighborhood, you have all the houses on the street, they all have their setbacks, and they all look orderly manner in the street and all that. Without a flag lot rules, one could take a lot, and if they met the minimum requirement of the street, they could go way back and build houses, say in the backyard, all your parcels in a neighborhood, when that really wasn't the intention of the subdivision folks that did it. That's kind of, so the first recommendation would be to define flag lots and then prohibit them. Secondly, and again, this speaks to what you do with recorded plans. You have matured, your existing plan of lots, residential neighborhood, and how do you maintain that? The second rule would require that a building lot that's laid out in a previously recorded plan of lots cannot be used as a driveway or a public or private road to access a lot of lands that are not part of that subdivision plan. And it's interesting because in today's world, we talk about PRD, sometimes planning about residential communities. When you look at all our residences around here that were in the 50s, 60s, 70s, you don't have open space that's part of the plan. In fact, there's a lot of open space that's kind of orphan. Open space. Yeah. You look at them, it may be Acme Developer that was your developer that did that back. The provision was just never made. These days, these very same developments, all these kind of lands, they'd be in an HOA inside that recorded plan document. So this is kind of like retro engineering kind of rules that meet that same goal. Third one would be that you can't use a lot in one zoning district as a driveway, access point, etc., to a use in another zoning district. And that's a higher thing. So if you're in an R1, you can't use it as a driveway in an R2. If you're in an R, you can't use it as a driveway to get into a commercial property. In fact, there's instances where I saw in some case law in other communities here where there was a case where there was attempts to use a residential lands lot to access what would be adjacent, say, almost like a Great Southern type shopping center. pretty common rule that you see Pine Township has, and a number of others I Googled around that have just a generic rule that basically says that you don't divide lots by municipal boundaries. It's just a catch-all that you see in a lot of, that we have in a lot of the ordinances. And again, Pine Township and a number of others have those incorporated that into these. And then lots shall have minimum required frontage on a Bridgeville Borough public street. That's a common specification that you see as well. 7 is kind of unrelated, but while I was at it, and we're in the same, we're looking at just kind of quick fixes, and I was running into this recently. Number 7, basically, it's just a concept that you can't have an accessory structure without a primary structure on a piece of land. Because what happens sometimes is code officers or zoning officers, they'll kind of go, I'm gonna build my house, but can I put the garage on there until I'm done? And then next thing you know, the house never gets built. You really can't have a garage that's an accessory garage, and that's kind of one example. That was just intended to nip, so Joe will never have to face that. I just threw that. And then finally, go ahead, Betty.
So that's what relates to the Shabala lots. If they tear the one house down?
We're going,
Yeah, but they're
I know, but you're
Yeah, had you not.
amending.
Had you not, and I'll be honest with you, that rule, it's actually, even if you didn't have that spelled out in it, it's more like educational for folks, because in my opinion, and it's a fact, under zoning law, even if you didn't have a rule that says that, it's just a concept. An accessory use, by definition, is something that's lower to and subordinate to a principal use. So you can't really have something lower and subordinate to a principal use if you don't have a principal use. So you would, if somebody couldn't call and Joe and say, oh no, you have to make me put my swimming pool on there even before I build my house because you don't have this rule, that's not the case. But it's clear when you have a rule. And then finally, kind of back to the overall kind of law requirements thing, I'm more under the category of setbacks. You've seen with zoning ordinances. This is a rule that clarifies what do you do when you have a vacant buildable lot inside an otherwise built out plan of lots. And a lot of times you see this as a non-conforming use rule where say in 1970, when the houses were built in a particular neighborhood, the setbacks were 30. And then maybe more modern setbacks, when you had some of these zoning updates, they put in 35 and 40. Well, it makes no sense to for somebody to put their one house 5 to 10 feet right back from the rest of the neighborhood, so you allow that. Here, and regardless of whether you change the ordinance or not, this rule would require that if you're building a house in that last lot or whatever, a few lots of an otherwise built out plan, you not only are allowed to, you shall conform your front setback. You line your house up with the rest of the existing houses. Yeah. And if they're off a little bit, you average. It's common to see in these ordinances you average the two, but that's what the rule out is. And that's kind of the totality of the recommendations. And if you have any questions about any of them, I'd be happy to answer.
It doesn't relate to this so much as, let's see, 10 years down the road here, and the lot on the north side starts to get developed, okay? Does this at all relate to the minimum setback from the road?
No, setbacks are defined for the north end of Washington.
Okay, all right.
Oh, right, no, those are internal setbacks, those, yeah,
Okay.
good question, but we have current setbacks, and even in your comprehensive plan that you're doing now with that zone, you may or may not get a recommendation on, the setback should be such and such.
Because in my last community, the setbacks from the sidewalk were a minimum of 5 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the type of plan it was developed for, you know?
Right.
And they had live-work situations where there was a business underneath and there were condos up above.
Mm-hmm.
And the sidewalk was there, and then maybe you walk 5 feet into the retail center.
Right, and even, and even your Washington Avenue, or I worked over in Bellevue, a lot of places that are kind of like that in your core business area, you'll see a 0 setback.
Okay,
As we have here, what's
Yeah.
interesting is Washington Avenue, pretty much all of the M district is 0, excluding the north end of Washington Avenue, which is 20 feet.
Yeah.
So when you get to like 4B on your agenda, and we keep working the north end like an onion down,
Yeah.
it is something that should be
Okay.
analyzed.
Yes.
Yes. So if you wanted that bridge-to-bridge conformity, that setback really doesn't achieve that.
Yeah, now, if you wish, if those sound like good recommendations for amendments, you could actually take action on them tonight. We can instigate amendments in a couple of ways. Sometimes council kind of wants to do something, they kind of send it down to you guys. Hey, we think we ought to do this, let's do this and send it to the planning commission meeting. Other times, changes emanate from the planning commission started. So if you thought this was a useful amendment, these are all good amendments, then it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to recommend that Borough Council adopt these following amendments to the zoning and subdivision ordinance.
Okay.
And to begin,
and just one other thing, we have 2 versions of this. Did you read? This is the updated one. So when, okay,
yes.
because I was gonna say we should probably put some sort of identifier at the bottom that we know that.
It is.
Throw the other one, throw the first one out.
Okay.
Okay.
I had a prior draft, I found some typos and cleaned it up, we should rip that out and we're good.
I would entertain a discussion that we, or a motion.
I've had all my questions answered.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions, I think it looks good.
Okay. I would make a motion that we forward this to the Borough Council for adoption.
And the form of a motion, if I might, would be a motion to recommend that Borough Council adopt the following amendments to the zoning and subdivision ordinance, which if you wish you could read out, or I could read and you could say so.
Well, I'd be happy to make that amendment, except I can't memorize everything.
No, no,
What he said.
and you're allowed to do what he said, that's Robert's rules allows you to do that.
Awesome.
What he said, and I'll read them, how's that?
Good.
That's my motion.
Proposed zoning and saldo amendments, 10/28/2024. Lot requirements for zoning / saldo. Number 1, flag lots, defining and prohibiting flag lots. Flag lots are the lots that do not meet required minimum lot width at the minimum building setback line, and which have elongated and more narrow extensions connecting the bulk of the lot area with a street. Flag lots shall be prohibited in the borough of Bridgeville. 2, a building lot as laid out in the previous recorded plan of lot shall not be used as a driveway or as a private road or public road to access a lot or lands that are not part of the same recorded plan of lots. Number 3, a lot or portion of a lot located in one zoning district shall not be used as a driveway or private or public street to access an adjacent lot or portion of a lot in another zoning district if the use is not permitted as of right or as a conditional use in the zoning district in which the proposed driveway or private street will be located. Number 4, a lot or portion of the lot shall not be used as a driveway or public or private street to access an adjacent lot or portion of a lot in another municipality. Number 5, no lot shall be divided by the borough boundary line. No lot shall be considered with a lot,
Consolidated.
shall be consolidated with a lot not located within the borough of Bridgeville. Number 6, lots shall have the minimum requirement frontage on a Bridgeville Borough public street. Number 7, in all zoning districts, accessory structures and uses are not permitted without first having a principal structure on the lot or a substantial completion of a principal structure. This does not apply to temporary construction trailers or construction sheds as permitted by this chapter. And number 8 refers to setbacks. Establish minimum and maximum front yard setbacks in the existing recorded plans of record, requiring any new principal structures to conform with, i.e. align with, the front yard setbacks of existing structures on the immediately adjacent lots, or an average thereof. So, I think this ties in very well with, what we've been talking about with the comprehensive plan and updating some of the zoning and stuff, so, appreciate that. You have something else to?
Just if somebody felt it appropriate, they could second that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any further discussion?
Who made the motion?
Thank you.
Yeah. I did what he said.
We're good.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We'll send that ahead to council and start the process.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, number 3. Item number 3 on the agenda, review comments regarding the Collier Township draft comprehensive plan. Does anybody have any comments?
Yeah, but I think we should make note of the setback.
Setback. All right, how about setback?
As north end setback. I mean, what we were just discussing in regards to the future plan development, that we need to remember to discuss
Changing the
old
setback.
versus new,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, the north end.
Right.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay. Melissa?
So I have a question. The economic development organization that Collier wants to create, like, is there an opportunity for, like, I know that the intent of that is for them to development within their township, but it feels like it would be nice if they asked surrounding communities to partner a little bit. And I'm trying to go by memory
I
of.
could definitely, if we had a list of concerns or questions or thoughts we'd like to share with them, that'd be just something we can definitely put in the letter.
Okay,
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for, stuff like that.
yeah.
And like you said before, it kind of dovetails with what we just did.
Right.
It's actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like one thing that they were talking a lot about in development of their spaces, and Tom's Run Road, Steam Road in particular, kind of caught my eye because they didn't really address partnering with Bridgeville and looking at traffic impact for those things, because, I think it's gonna drive, like, they develop those areas, it's gonna drive a lot of traffic on Presley Road. And we're talking about, like, the corridor, like the, Route 50 corridor, but not really the back way. Well, I call it the back way.
And that's always been a hot issue for years, the potentiality of, mainly focuses between Collier and South Fayette, though, because
Yeah.
it flows out that way. There's
Yeah.
not always a consideration given how that ties in here.
Yeah.
Universal, did you see that Universal has the potential to be sold?
No.
To a company, I think, out of Belgium?
Yeah.
Universal is in what township?
It's in both.
Oh, it's in
there's
Bridgeville?
the properties on this, most of the mill's in Collier,
Okay,
but the parking lots are in Bridgeville.
okay, all right.
On this side of the creek, if you're familiar with Union Street, they
Yeah.
have their employee parking
Yeah.
that's in Bridgeville.
They still use it?
Mhm.
future wise, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. They say they're gonna keep it together because of the US government contract, so.
Okay, do we have any other comments for Collier? The one thing that I liked that your consultants did was, talked about sidewalk maintenance and they made a recommendation, recommendation that Collier should offer educational materials and workshops to inform property owners about the responsibilities of sidewalks. And to me, that kind of makes sense that, maybe it's something that Bridgeville should think about is either putting together some informational stuff or doing some workshops regarding sidewalk maintenance. I think it's one of those things that, we can do a better job communicating with our residents.
Sure, I know it's funny, it's like, you just take for given that most people understand their responsibilities, but once you realize, they don't.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, hey, look, my survey shows I end right here, I'm not responsible for that. And when you deliver that message, you're responsible. They look at you like you have three heads.
Yeah.
So you're right.
And even especially on the PennDOT roads, on Washington, those folks, business people, doesn't have PennDOT. They think PennDOT.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's a particular property on mine, I have in mind on the north end, but,
That's it.
Okay.
So, I can draft a letter from the planning commission and I'll circulate it with you guys. And then once you guys agree, we'll get it over to them.
Sounds like a plan.
So I had one more thing, I mean, do you want me to like one
Yeah,
last now or?
let's hear it. Yeah.
Okay. I noticed that they have in their plan, a recommendation for fire and EMS to work with the school district on like training the kids and then trying to, solicit kids to join the fire department as volunteers. So, I mean, it seems to me like that would be a nice thing for them to, again, do a joint initiative through all the communities that are part of the school district. Instead of, I mean, like, if we decided to do something like that down the road, where everybody's gonna look like they're bumping into each other,
Sure, that's a good
Yeah.
thing. Yep. Okay.
It's a good point. Okay. Anything else?
No.
You're on a roll here.
World.
Come on.
Because Collier has, Scott has their, we have.
Right,
we have all-
yeah.
Yeah.
And if we wanted to, like, if you wanted to educate the kids and get them involved, like, I mean, then they could have, speakers would come from the different departments or whatever. And are there multiple EMS supporting?
Yeah, there's three different agencies.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Old business, comprehensive plan projects, plan implementation and design. Shade trees, community shade tree planting will be held Saturday, November 16th, 9 a.m. Meet at the Borough Building. Volunteers are needed. I
And it's-
noticed that there's a thing that you guys have it out on the billboard, on your
Okay.
electronic sign.
And if it's anything like we had last time, it should be a nice event where they send out contractors in advance to prep all the holes and have everything ready for us. Anything different this time around is that instead of being all just Cook School Park, we're kind of at like spread throughout the community. But 10 trees just won't take very long. It's kind of be nice if we have 20, 30 people. We just meet here and you just go to your little island and that's it. So it should work out very nice.
So where there are not like the giant pine trees.
What?
She drew the short end of the straw on the last plan and had a giant.
Cook School Park, we
Dan and I
wrestling
picked
these
a
Yeah,
nice normal.
trees like this big in the holes.
Yeah. She had like a pot machine to plant. It was, yeah. They give us mature trees.
Yeah.
They're big. Yeah.
That's what big.
But that was such a
You
nice
had,
event.
you had mature trees in that, I thought we were putting in
I mean,
like
they were,
older trees.
No, you're thinking of when we did on Baldwin Street.
Yeah.
We did
No,
Cook School Park.
we did Baldwin and Cooks, we meaning, God,
Yeah.
I did both places.
I mean, they were only 6 feet
They were
tall,
6,
but they probably weighed, 80 or
They were
100
heavy.
pounds.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
They were real
Because
bad.
of their,
Yeah,
you know,
that's usually what I tell, Guy, you do, you move it, so that's probably what I'm missing.
Okay, moving on. North End Washington Avenue revitalization. Bower Hill Road to Mayor Street widening / traffic improvements project update. You have something?
Yes, it kind of dovetails with the Collier plan. Our plan recommended that we reach out to Collier and ask for them to incorporate the North End traffic improvements into their plan. They did that, and it was nice is that both boards were talking to have the support leverage for that. So when both plans were done, our next step was let's leverage a meeting with state officials to get it on their radar so that in the end we can get SBC funding or get PennDOT funding to build it. Essentially it's all state roads, that's what we want. So the two towns strategically had a meeting with our state rep and state senator at the Chamber of Commerce building, right at the front door of what's proposed. We put together a proposal that essentially summarizes the North End project that was done by the Route 50 task force in 2015. That plan, our engineer went back and did an update of what would that cost, and from Presley Road to Mayor Street was about $13 million. In that proposal that we sent to them and then we reviewed with them, we said, hey, our planning commission last month is subsequently calling on this plan to be extended to Bower Hill Road. So essentially the entire north end of Bridgeville into Collier, eliminating the bottleneck would be included. And just for the sake of not sounding ignorant, they understood you're already shooting for the moon at 13 million, what the heck, let's go to Bower Hill Road. And everyone was understanding and supportive of going to Bower Hill Road. So that was nice to see. I shared with you what we shared with them, the Route 50 task force, our summary of the project, the construction estimate, the successes of those plans, and it really was a very good meeting. That the follow-up is after the holidays. We're going to have another meeting with them, and potentially they're going to try to get the State Secretary of Transportation to come to another meeting at the Chamber building, because it was so nice. Devlin obviously knew it because he lives here, but Anita, it was nice as we would talk about something, she'd look out the window and go, oh, I get it. And oh, God, I got stuck in traffic getting here.
Yeah.
These were great things. You know? So the next thing is hopefully after the holidays, run with this enthusiasm and to get more people to the table. So both towns are supporting it. Both comprehensive plans are in concert with each other. And now we're just trying to run with it now. And it was nice where we, discussing this at the meeting before we met with them, extending it all the way, we pitched it to them, and they didn't think we were crazy. They actually supported that as well. So it was a very nice meeting.
And who was in this meeting?
It was myself, the council president, the state senator Devlin Robinson, our state representative Anita Kulik, the township manager, assistant manager, and the planning director from Collier, and one of their commissioners.
I see these are from Gateway, these drawings are from Gateway. Does that mean that they're
That's
from
just
the past?
yes, that's a
Okay.
concept drawing.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, all right.
So like that's not a plan you can go to construction for.
Right,
That's a
right.
concept plan.
No, I'm just, because I saw something similar about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, and your point is spot on. In the full proposal I shared with them,
Yeah.
it was nice, the Route 50 task force, when they did those plans in 2015, did 3 concept plans. One was for the south end, one was for here at Barn Hill Road, and then the north end. And just so they didn't look like we were just coming with our pie in the sky,
Right.
we explained that, hey, this planning effort has been successful, and it did here at Barn Hill Road, it did the south end bridge, that's what levered the widening of Shapiro Street, the south end bridge, and then the on-ramps in Millers Road. So these plans do have merit and credit to prove that they will work. And it was nice, I included it in the packet as well. So your question, hey, this came from Gateway, it's old, what is this? It shows that, hey, these things,
Have been on record for a while.
correct, it's not even that, it's like they prove themselves.
Right. And what about the train trestle? I mean, how does that all fit in with this?
I don't know. It does fit in with this, because that's gonna have to be extended
Right.
or
Okay,
lined
alright.
more. That's gonna be, there's gonna have to be a revision made to that concept
Okay.
plan to
Well,
show
it'll be
how
easy.
that is done.
It'll be easy to take it down, Joe, because it's already fallen.
I don't think so.
No, seriously, I'm not kidding you.
Seriously, there's like 6 feet of concrete there, so.
Yeah, and the concrete, all you have to do is go blow on it and it falls. I'm not kidding.
But you're right, because in all realities, the farther we get down the road with this, and if we're leveraging the support to extend this, that remaining block, that missing link needs to be drawn
Yeah,
out.
they'll be
Because
forced.
we know how to say, what do we do with that trestle?
Right.
Show me on a plan
Right.
what we do with that trestle.
Yeah.
So you're-
We went down there with a bunch of 2x4s, we, meaning Guy and I, hammered together, looking at a concept of some murals, you remember that, Paul?
It's those the
We
bumpers are bad
let
shape.
go of them.
Oh, yeah.
Because we weren't strong enough to hold this enormous, and it fell into just fell from the concrete.
Yeah, well, it's still supportive enough to
Yeah,
handle
okay.
train traffic, so,
Yeah,
you know.
just barely.
Thank you, Joe. Revitalization discussion, flood mitigation, traffic improvements, continuing of the downtown streetscape, all Washington Avenue, pedestrian improvements, public parking recommendations, land use zoning recommendations.
I think that's kind of the nutshell of the
Zoning.
vision of the north end. And I think this is on here as an agenda item so that we keep this on track and show where we are. And I know I used that awful analogy before about an onion, but this is really like an onion. Is that step one is flood mitigation, because you got to get it on the floodplain. And it was nice, as was mentioned at our last council meeting, that we got our permits from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the DEP to build phase one of the flood control project. And easements are secured. Now we just got to finalize the fundings on the grant for FEMA and FEMA to give us the green light. So, okay, we've got that kind of out of our wheelhouse now. It's time to get shovels in the ground. So that's step one. And then step two is traffic, the roads, you know. And we just went over that. It was nice through 50 task force, but we need to start talking about, like Justine said, that missing link. What do we do with that? Continuation of the downtown streetscape. It comes up with wonderful suggestions like the solicitor had that raised a red flag really on that setback in the north end. Because if you look at our zoning ordinance for the M district, it's the mixed use district, it's 0 everywhere. Like I could have 0 on Baldwin Street, I could have 0 on McLaughlin Run, but it says 20 feet from Bower Hill Road to Collier on Washington Avenue. So if you, that plan, the community vision for that plan was bridge to bridge Main Street.
Right.
So that really is something that should be addressed, and that's one thing nice about doing the zoning amendment, but we're hoping to get funding to do next year. This is something that we could be addressing, but issues like that, it kind of like caught your eye, but nothing until like now, oh, that's a red herring there.
Yeah.
Right.
That these are the things I think we should be discussing. And then streetscaping, all of Washington Avenue, the south end is built, you know, but it's not streetscaped, and it's only got one last block to do. And it was something where the state right now has Main Street Matters grants that you can get funding for downtown. And I easily could just apply for a streetscape grant, and I really was going to do that for the north end. And then I thought, I pumped the brakes, because originally I first thought naively that, you know, we could just put the remainder one block of those lanterns in, which everyone's going to be in support of that, you know,
Right.
and some sidewalk improvements. And then you start thinking there, you know what, you have one block of above head utilities. All right, what are we going to do with that? So then you start looking at it, you go, there's more to streetscaping the
Yeah.
south end than me throwing a grant together, not me asking for money, not me having a project to support.
Right.
And that's not the way you do it. We
Right.
need to have a project that we go and ask for funding. So I'm asking for the planning commission to help us put a plan together of how we think that South End should be streetscaped. And it could be something simple like, I just touched on some bullet points here, so that we could do a concept plan, so that Main Street Matters funding next year's opens up. We got a project ready, we have a concept plan that got communal support, and we have an estimate that we can go for, not doing this reverse, saying, hey, give me 500,000 and I'll build you something. You know?
Is that for streetscaping, like greeneries and trees, and, or is that pedestrian crossings also?
I think it was everything, anything for downtown, so I think we could go that way. So, but that same conversation of how we vision that is the vision for down there.
Right.
So it's like, okay, start having that thing. And I just kept the talking points that has been coming up in every month. And we talked about for the past couple months about public parking. And Tom's here, it's interesting that you'll appreciate this, is that parking requirements, you're essentially exempt from off-street parking if you're 600 feet from a public parking lot in Bridgeville. So over the past couple months, we mapped out where that 600 is. And it essentially just left out the north end from Brookfield up and a part of McLaughlin Run Road. So the discussion is, okay, what do you see? What does the community see as the revitalization of the north end, and does that include public parking? And where does that public parking fit into this mix? So that was another thing that just came up, so I just kept it as an agenda item.
And Joe, even on the existing side that's within that zone, I guess partially is something for the authority to analyze too. What's our inventory and what's the potential maximum use that folks could, if they took advantage of that, and you had all the uses in that zone that don't have to have off-street parking requirements, do we as a borough have public parking, et cetera, and to meet that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we really don't know the answer to that.
I've always been afraid of that.
Yeah.
Not knowing the answer.
Where was recently PennDOT, we asked PennDOT to do the study on the intersections, pedestrian intersections, like the Dairy Delight and the Bower Hill / Washington Avenue?
We asked for LTAP guidance,
Correct.
which is a PennDOT program, on how we can improve mid-block crossings. And they came back with a proposal,
Right.
a recommendation for both of what you could do to improve those. And we shared them and discussed them at a meeting. It was nice is that subsequent to the meeting, right after that meeting, they had some COVID money that they got that they were dedicating to improving mid-block crossings, and they identified Railroad at Station Street in Bridgeville, essentially because there was a pedestrian accident there. And I went to them and said, hey, you just, I knew it, but we got LTAP advice to improve mid-block crossings. Is there a way you can do Bank Street Extension at Berg's, you know, as we call it, on Washington Avenue, and this one? And Lee came back, she says, yeah, we can do that. And then after that meeting, she came back and says, oh, I didn't realize this wasn't a state road here. I can't do Dairy Delight, as we call it. But we can still do the one on Washington Avenue at Berg's. So I said, okay, this is the poker player. I said, well, if you were going to do this one, any chance you could do the adjacent one at Hickman Street at Washington Avenue, which is only 500 feet away from Berg's?
Right.
That way, it don't look like an orphan. That way, both mid-block crossings that aren't at signalized intersections are up to what you want as to see. And she said, sure, we will do that. And we were told that would be done this year. It hasn't been gotten to yet, but we have correspondence that they are going to do those 3 intersections, improve the signage, improve the crosswalks. So we're going with what the active transportation plan, the goal was.
Okay, but we still have an issue down here on Power Hill Road.
Yeah, we don't have, we know the goal, you know,
Yeah.
what the end game is, it's just
Right.
now putting it into action. And it's
So
something,
it's something that the borough has to do
We
as
have to do.
opposed to, yeah,
Correct.
okay, yeah.
and we have a plan, it's just now we have to do it. Yep. Okay, good. So, and then the last thing is you keep going off of the north end is the land use and the zoning recommendations, so that everything's in concert with what the community called for with the comprehensive plan. So that's kind of where we're at, so.
We're making progress moving forward.
Yeah, so I think now it's like, how do we want to start chiseling this away? What topic we want to talk on over each month or so to keep this ship going? Because it's nice we're people are taking it serious now. The neighboring town put something that we asked them to do in a comprehensive plan, and that's a chapter in the plan, that's huge.
Yeah.
So we want to run with this.
The second phase of flood mitigation, do we have any ideas as to our plan for that, or?
Well, I think what we're gonna do here is look at, phase one, and then we're gonna chew on, the north end here a little bit, and run with the successes of phase one into phase two. That makes any sense. I think, it's, we're starting to bite off on the north end here. We've got a little momentum going in that direction. So we'll keep chewing on this. I mean, there's a number of issues that need to be addressed with phase two of flood mitigation, and yeah, those are some discussion points, but I think we need to make sure that phase one gets done first. Keep going.
Because I tell you, I think personally, I need a refresher as to what phase two is.
Yeah.
And the cost. I mean, because I'm sure the cost has gone up astronomically as compared to even just 3 or 4 years ago.
We're going to know soon. We'll probably go into bid within the year for phase one. And
Yeah.
his estimate was like 7.3
Right.
million. So
Right.
let's see how good that math is.
I agree about, I'm trying to visualize where I have my documents.
Yeah.
And I find them and refresh my memory on what that work is.
Okay, Baldwin Street flood lot repurpose, pollinator garden in the 500 block, finalized garden concept plan, project budget, recommendation to Borough Council for spring of 2025 community planting.
So there's a quote in there for everyone. Yeah, so we discussed this last month, Dale, and so this is the lot behind Beer Warehouse. We got a quote from, so that Joe can work with council and put something into the budget for next year for planting a section of that lot.
Okay.
We got a quote on, there's a plant design for a butterfly garden, so a pollinator garden would go on one side of that lot. And there's a quote attached so that we had a rough idea of what it would cost to plant that out. So 4 by 25 foot space with a couple other bushes at the back end that would help, that love water. So like if there is some water coming into that lot, these plants would all be able to handle that. So I think I thought this quote looked good.
Is this exactly what the borough's gonna do?
She made a couple modifications, so it's close to what she recommended.
Okay,
It's
so no, this is
availability
from
of
Missouri?
Baldwin Street.
No, this is from
The
the
plan.
design by
sorry.
Missouri Prairie Foundation?
Yeah, it's just like a sample.
Yeah, no, the only reason I'm asking is that, did we take that and say, okay, that's, and I don't have a problem with it, my only question is, climate and.
The plants are appropriate for this zone.
So if you look at the quote on the second page,
Okay, well, I
it's,
didn't get this.
Yes.
it's okay. So Arcadia Natives,
Pictures.
Arcadia Natives is a local nursery,
Oh, okay.
nursery in Washington, but she only sells natives that are appropriate for our region.
Gotcha.
So she did swap out a couple things.
So
from
she
that.
did mess around with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah. And, I mean, this design shows like a fence, like a split rail fence running through the middle.
Yeah.
You would plan like climbing things
Yeah.
on. I mean, that might be something we want to do like down the road if we get a scout project or something like that. So I don't think she put those binding things into the quote.
So, who's actually doing the planting, the borough or this company that's providing?
Well, if we can get this put into the budget, then we'll figure out how we're gonna start to communicate it out to the community, but we'd like to do something similar to what we're doing with the tree planting.
replaced, and then everything there, that on a planting day is,
Boom, boom, boom.
yeah, I think that'd be a nice vision for this. Yeah, like the fence, obviously, the public works can do ahead of time, and we could all do that within our own labor force here.
And how did we decide how these are gonna get watered?
We didn't decide how these are gonna get watered.
Rain?
Scope project.
Yeah, so I mean, for the first year, we'll have to work out, like, I don't know if it would be possible for the borough to get a water buffalo. I don't know what's realistic for us to do for some of these lots, but these will need water for the first year, so really.
And that's where I'm gonna need the plan.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
where we fail.
Because, you know, even, again, this is our third year of watering the plants on Washington Avenue. And
Yeah.
it was a little bit of a challenge sometimes, because some people were always traveling, other people went on vacation for a while, you know, so it was always,
Yeah, I
You're talking
tried.
about crabs and baskets?
yeah. So, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Joe, is it possible for us to look at getting a water buffalo that, I mean, I don't know if
What,
we
did we just park there and volunteers would do it, or?
Well, you know, my question is, do other communities have water buffaloes that they use infrequently, or maybe we could borrow it one day a week and water?
I don't know.
We just want to know from Westbrook too, I mean, that is our parcel, like, we may be able to actually get, if it's long-term, maybe water service. We could be one of the service customers, you could set up water lines, but you could put in things for hose connections or whatever to help you service for the lot. Because long-term, you might need water.
I mean, if we wanted to do, like, our vision is for the rest of this lot to maybe become like community garden, where we have some raised beds for food or whatever people want to plant. So that would be really luxurious if they had a water source there.
Yeah, I think that would work, but I'll be very candid that our department isn't very big.
No, I agree.
And
Okay.
the amount of what we have to maintain is huge, that I think with the staffing
Yes.
we have, to have the level of expectation to be gardeners to hear.
No,
Well,
I
they're not gonna
agree.
do it.
I agree, it's
So,
just
yeah.
that what we need to figure out
Yeah.
when we do this is,
We're
you
gonna-
know,
yeah, there
we
has to be
always
water.
had at least like 21-gallon buckets of water, all right? And sometimes we watered twice a day, and sometimes we watered once a day, but it takes a team
To do it.
to do it.
Yeah.
So, and it was convenient up on Washington Avenue because somebody had a hose bib that we could access and get water. And then I became buddies with the barber across from the post office, and he allowed me to get water from there, so.
It may not be that expensive. Let me get a proposal, because you think about it, a house was here. There's a curb box out in the sidewalk. It's just reestablish that and put a water pit in. And like, that's something like our guys can do, and our guys can fix the sidewalk after it's done. It's just, what would that cost me? And it's just, as long as there's a water pit and someone does it,
Yeah,
I think that would be
Oh,
nice.
okay.
I can get that estimate, and
I
we
feel
can
like
put that
we
in
can
the
find
overall.
people to do it.
right.
The dragging water from your house or whatever is probably less appealing to
I
volunteers.
mean, is that an issue with the FEMA grant?
No.
As far as modifications?
It's just no permanent structure being put there.
Okay.
The water pit doesn't.
Before we call it a day, I think we need, but is this on, oh, never mind, it's on here.
Yeah, so right behind Beer Warehouse, Dixie. That
Okay, because
first,
I was gonna say, you got 7,000 pieces of whatever that stuff's called, that you put water through, you know, the hose. You could get it up to our house from there.
She put in elderberry, what are those trees that we?
she put, I think, 3 elderberry in
Okay.
this quote, yeah. So they would go along the back if you
Okay.
want to suck up anything that's,
Okay, good.
yeah. Yeah, and so Joe, I mean, just, like, we're doing this for the quote, I mean, Kelly could certainly help
I think we're
supply
good.
plans.
Everything else I can get quotes for,
Yeah.
like topsoil and that, and I'll get a quote for the water service.
Okay.
And it's nice, we have our first budget meeting next Monday. if you guys are in support of advocating for this, if you guys make a motion to do it, I can put a letter together that we can share with council, and then within our parks budget next year, you make sure money's put aside to do this. Because if you remember this year, within our parks budget, we have a line item for capital improvements in the parks, and the discussion was last year that, you know what, we understand that we're going to save some of that money just for a Waldron Street project. So it would be nice to have support for next week's budget meeting. You can share,
Motion,
yeah.
motion.
I will make a motion, that we send a letter to the budget committee, council and budget committee, to set aside funds for this project.
Forward. Okay, we got a motion, and a second?
Second?
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, active transportation plan, it's getting late.
Kickoff's not till 8:30.
I would,
He maybe has to get up for work.
I would suggest, make a recommendation that we table, the active transportation quarterly discussion and review of off-street parking until November.
You know what, I have no problem with that, because I have a question. This Greg Avenue Step project, I just felt like we talked about that, and it was going to be definitely, I thought we had somebody that could do it, and it wasn't gonna be super expensive, and then next thing I know, it's, you're looking for somebody new, and it's gonna cost an arm and a leg. What happened?
3 years.
Beg your pardon?
3 years
Oh,
from the time we got the first quote until today.
They added a zero this fall? All right, awesome.
Plus there are a few things added.
Okay.
First time was in-house repairs using a local contractor, working with the borough, and then COVID came, and then just the quantity of material was over the bid threshold. And it just snowballed from there. Yeah.
Well, I've been such a huge fan of it because I walked that way.
Yeah, so we have a bid of things.
I don't really have a problem with the walking with the goofy steps, but not, like real steps with nuts. But I just I sort of kept my eye on this one because I thought it was really cool and it would be super for the walk back up the hill. But
So we'll see how good your question about the number is on the November 11th council agenda, to see what that bid is.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Okay.
But does it make sense then for us to have I was just looking real quick, a line item for the Dairy Line crossing put on this plan, since that one's not, I thought?
Let me look at that recommendation again, because there was just, if it's just signage, we have a signage budget that we could take care of it.
Does anybody have any issues with tabling the rest of the discussion for active transportation and off-street parking, agenda issues? Okay. Public comment, real quick.
Thanks, Pat.
You're welcome. Dream big, and you are, and it's appreciated. The reason that there's an incongruity with the zoning ordinance for the north end on the setbacks, the extra 20 feet, is for the very north end project that you're looking at right now. Am I correct, Joe? You aware of that?
I don't know.
Okay. A little bit of history. The M district is lot line to lot line. There is no setback requirement, except from Bower Hill Road to the borough line on the north end of Washington Avenue, where there is a 20-foot setback. The reason there's a 20-foot setback is to allow for the widening of Washington Avenue as proposed in the comprehensive plan that you've just adopted, and as communicated to Collier Township and coordinated with them. It would be very difficult to actually execute that plan if someone in these intervening decades had come in and built a business to the lot line, as was permitted in the rest of the M district. As soon as this plan is implemented, that incongruity will look obvious, we will get rid of it, I'm certain. So that's the history of it as to why it's in the zoning law. It was an intentional, does everybody understand?
No, that's a good point, Pat, and that, those like zoning maps and setbacks like that, they're used to avoid, you either can't build the road, or you're gonna have to pay a lot of money to buy a house by eminent domain to build your road, so.
Exactly.
And then they can, when they're done, they can go reset the zero setback, but from the new
Exactly.
if you wish.
Why is it different in that section than, as opposed to like the homes that are across the street from Presley?
Sure.
Like, from the train trestle to Thomas,
From the train trestle to where?
to Thomas Dance Studio, like those houses that are in there, and like Schulte.
There's a larger setback, so that the road can be, so that the project you have proposed can happen. Assume over the last 15 years, someone came in to Thomas Dance Studio and decided they wanted to build to the property line, as they could in any other part of the M district. You would now be trying to, as the solicitor just said, you would now be trying to take their property that they had just built a building on, that you now need to take, instead of just taking vacant land.
Right,
In answer
there's
to your
no,
question, some of, I think if I can understand your
Please.
question, some of the buildings that are down there that are closer,
Yeah.
and they may have been built, if they're older, pre-zoning or before,
Correct.
back in time before that protective setback was put into place.
All pre-zoning entirely.
Yeah.
Nothing has been built since that protection was put in. But that's why it was put in, was to allow for what you're trying to do now. Speaking of which, Joe, I am very much one for parallel processing, not eating an entire elephant in one sitting, but thinking that we can do two things, or three. Your concept of the streetscape on the south end fits very nicely with the streetscape in the north end. I would encourage you to think about the utilities and the streetscape as part of the north end project.
Oh, yeah, I think
It
that that's,
is, it would seem obvious, but just seem, I would bring you to the south end, where the obvious just didn't obviously happen. The
okay.
utilities on Chartier Street are still there, and there is no streetscape, and nothing was coordinated in that manner. And this has not been remedied. Collier Township just, they rebuilt Eaton Park, but the utility lines on Route 50 in Collier Township, that's their problem, by the way, I'm not addressing it. But they did nothing. They simply moved poles. Okay, again, not my township, not my utility lines, but man, that does not look good, does it?
Not in this day and age, but
No. And I am here to say, when you were at the meeting with the state senator, was there even any discussion about utilities?
We didn't talk utilities.
Okay.
I think, but we're all on the same page. Yeah.
I
We didn't
understand.
get that far.
We're all on the same page, but if I don't, I'm trying to bring it up so that it's forefront in the concept. And because I think, Joe, if the South End grant by itself, and I'm all in favor, if you can do a South End grant by itself, I can give you some background on that. It was planned, to do the South End streetscape.
you talk so much, I forgot what I was going to ask.
On that note,
Thanks, Pat.
thank you very much.
Steelers are losing, by the way.
Hey, thanks for, better you than me on that.
You can talk to her later.
And on that note,
Yeah. Take a motion to adjourn? Anything else, by the way? Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, second? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.